Fires one towards the goal. That's going to be gloved by Travis Ridgen. Well, this is more like it.
This is Slangin The Bizkit. Here's Travis Ridgen and Dave Wheeler.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined by a good personal friend, my personal goalie coach, somebody that I've had the privilege of knowing for a couple of years, Mr. Pasco Valana. We were at the gorgeous Vancouver lookout. We've been blessed to be allowed up here, exclusive access to record today. And
it's absolutely amazing. Bruno let us in, and she was amazing, first class, customer service skills, and what a beautiful view here today. It's awesome. And I'm your only friend, I think you were saying.
One of few. One of
very few.
The weather outside right now is very indicative of our relationship.
Yeah, schizophrenic.
Very schizophrenic. Obviously, you can't see in the video version of the podcast, but to the North Vancouver side, it is pissing
raining
rain
like hell.
And on the Kitsilano side, it is blue skies, beautiful sunshine.
Sunny, gorgeous, volleyball weather. Spanish banks happening. Oh yeah, it's going to be incredible.
It doesn't get any better, but it's just like our relationship.
Exactly.
One thing I want to kickstart the podcast off with, a little hot, contested topic, shall we say. It's very hot.
All right, let's do it.
Binnington, Fleury, fight. Yeah. Almost fight. Do you have any thoughts on that before we get going?
Binnington himself is a very highly competitive guy, super highly competitive. And, just from people that I've known from inside the game, that he is a goaltender that likes to punch a few guys here and there. He does. He stays in the game that way, and I think it's really, it's his way of staying grounded, focused, and feeling a certain way to play. Unfortunately, that has to be tamed down a bit. In that particular play, when they scored, the player skated through him. He could have tried to avoid him, but he did skate through him, and Binnington took it the wrong way. So he turns around and goes over immediately. So you got the weight. I know this intimately because I punched a guy out too once they scored on me in a playoff game. But I had the scout from the New Westminster Bruins behind me just with his pad and shaking his head going, and then he closed it. So that's a good message to people out there. But, Binnington lost it and went out and started fighting. Dangerous as hell for a goaltender, first of all, to do that. I understand. He's competitive. I understand. I've done it. But the challenge is that, now he's got a bit of a target on his back, so they know what to do. They know how to get under his skin. And when you're highly successful like that, that's what they're going to do. So anyway, he skated through his leg, and he got up and started something. And then, of course, Fleury comes down. Now, that was a blessing and a curse at the same time, because that would have been great to see, Binnington and Fleury. But I have a feeling Fleury would have beat the crap out of him.
You think so?
Yeah.
Similar weight, similar height, both. I think 6'2". 180 pounds, 170 pounds?
Yeah, but Fleury, he's you're not going to skate down casually and really want to go unless you know what you're going to do. And I think he'd probably take him in that one.
I had an idea the other day. Yeah. They're playing each other on April 8th, so this podcast is going to go up after that.
Nice.
Opening face-off, first period. The boys
start them both at center ice.
No, they both start in the cage, and the guys know what's going to happen. Puck drops, everybody goes to the bench, and the goalies meet at center ice. It's straight out of the FPHL.
Listen, send that to Gary Bettman. Anything to sell tickets, anything to get eyes on the game. But I just think it's going to be, something. I think they're going to be razzing him quite a bit. I think that's what's going to do. They're going to do a lot of flybys, and they're going to do a lot of chirps. If anything, that's what you want to do. Mic the players for that particular game, because it's going to be a beauty of chirps. That's what it's going to be.
Apparently, during the game, the Blues were up 3-1, 2-goal lead, and the guys in the Wild bench were giving it to Jordan Binnington, letting him hear it. Obviously, I got 2 cup rings. How many rings you got? Yeah. And then they bury 5 unanswered goals against him. Yeah. Excuse me, it was 2-0. Sorry, 5 unanswered goals, and then obviously gets the better of him. Do you think that, I have my opinions, but do you think that has a place in hockey, the way that Jordan Binnington plays the game, a little bit of an edge, that firiness?
I think it needs to be. I mean, and that's the competitive nature of a goaltender. Does he need to go around swinging and, karate chopping and using his stick as a mohawk, as an axe? Probably not. The main objective here is if he wants to battle, go ahead and battle. Drop the gloves, take off your helmet, and rock and roll. But you're always going to be on the losing end of that. I could just imagine fighting Evander Kane. It's going to be like it's like Chris Rock, fighting Will Smith. I mean, he knew his place and time, and he said, what did he say? He goes, when Will Smith slapped me, I kept hearing "Summertime" in my head. I still hear it today. But you got to watch it. I think that there is a place in the game for it, but I just think that you got to be, you got to hold it together, because now every team in the league is going to get under his skin. And if he gets rattled and allows 5 goals, mission accomplished. They punched him in the head repeatedly with words, and he loses a hockey game because of it. So you have to have a good balance and control of it. Patrick Waugh had some pretty good balance with that. Ron Hextall arguably had some really good good moments as well. I wouldn't want to fight either of those guys, but and look at, Hextall was the general manager of the National Hockey League. I mean, they're competitive, they're fiery athletes. These guys want to win more than anything. I don't think that Jordan Binnington does not want to win. He definitely wants to win, and you tapped into something that fires him up. So. If that's going to help them play better, then go ahead. But if it's going to, contribute to you playing worse or allowing 3, 4, 5 goals, then you might want to listen to to your goaltending coach there. You might want to listen to yourself and go, hey, I'm not going to give him that free biscuit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, this isn't the fighting podcast, but for those that didn't know, we were robbed of a Patrick Waugh Ron Hextall fight. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. When?
1987.
Yeah.
Flyers are playing the Montreal Canadiens.
Yep.
After warm-up, whatever happened, and Ron Hextall is going at everybody. Patrick Waugh was already in the locker room, and I believe, I could be wrong, Mike Keenan might have been the coach at the time. Whoever the coach of the Canadiens was at the time locked Patrick Waugh in the dressing room by himself. And he's like, why aren't you letting me out of the room? He's like, just stay there. And Ron Hextall, and then the Chris Chelios thing. But we were robbed of a Ron Hextall, Patrick Waugh fight.
That would have been beautiful.
Pay-per-views.
Well, you know what? I love Patrick Waugh because he's such an amazing guy. I don't want to talk anything, negative about him. He is a competitor, and he is, he can be a jerk as well on top of it, which would be, it's the right type of jerk. It's like it's like having, who's the guy from the Bruins there?
Rask?
No, he's a player. He gets irritated. He irritates everybody all the time.
Oh, Brad Marchand.
Brad Marchand. Okay, so everybody needs a Brad Marchand. As much as you hate a guy like Brad Marchand or hate an attitude, say, of Patrick Waugh, sometimes those guys you would kill to have them on your team because they're the one. It's like Buffalo, Amazing guy for the Chicago Blackhawks, was dominant. He was a murderer for Vancouver, dreams of winning the Stanley Cup. And, you hate the guy, but at the same time, you got to love him because if he was on your team, he'd probably be your most popular player just because he knows how to get under the skin of players. And he knows what to do to win. And you look at Brendan Saad, been traded all over the place. He always comes back. They always win the Stanley Cup. So it's pretty impressive.
The next one I got for you, and you mentioned a guy that you want to have on your team, a winner, must-haves, Andrei Vasilevskiy. Now, I have a take for you, and I want to explain you this first, and to the people listening, and then get your opinion. I personally think he's on steroids. I think Andrei Vasilevskiy's on steroids, and here's why. You have a goaltender who's 6'4", almost 6'5", moves better than everybody else, is faster than everybody else, and it's not even in the same category. There's him, and then there's the rest. How else do you get like that? I mean, you can make the argument that there's this massive Russian invasion of goaltenders, Sorokin, Shesterkin, Georgiev, Vasilevskiy, Varlamov. You have all of these Russians. Taysov in Columbus.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah, the thoughts on that, very, very simple. Who knows? Who knows if they're on it or not? Vasilevskiy himself is a highly talented, incredibly gifted, strong athlete, and you just have him. Arnold Schwarzenegger, comes in, he's got a beautiful physique, regardless of taking drugs or not. I can take 10 times the drugs, wouldn't have the physique he has. But Vasilevskiy, typical Russian player, strong-minded, very, very strong mentally, fully athletic. He's naturally big. When I was on the ice in Madison with some of the guys that were on there were like Jake Allen. Jake Allen and Ben Bishop, they skate like they're 5'7". They're so fast and so in control of their body. It's like taking a 5'7" guy and elongating them. Then you add athleticism and breaking from structure that Vasilevskiy, I don't think you're going to see a goaltender like Vasilevskiy again for probably another 25 years. He's just absolutely incredible. Now, the influx of Russian goalies, the secret behind the whole thing is that the Russian Federation, went to Finland, identified some of the things that they have, and they have a structured book in Finland that talks about what you should teach, when you should teach it, why it works, all the way through that. I can't read it, it's in Finnish. But the bottom line is they've got a structure that all goalie coaches agree upon, and then they allow the creativity and the intelligence of the goaltending coach to individualize their approach. The Russians took that and they built upon it, from advice from Vladislav Tretiak, whom I've coached with a couple of times, way at the beginning of my career in coaching goaltenders. And that man was incredible, and a huge man, and a man with hands like, you're shaking hands with 5 bananas, basically. It's just like incredible. But he just understands the game at a completely different level. That's Vasilevskiy. He understands the game. He does the small things, like even the reverse poke check when you try to come across, where most goaltenders would turn and slide. He turns a stick over and poke checks you. I mean, he just thinks at another level, and I think that the Russians have now taken that structure from Finland, the blocking power of Sweden, the North American kind of compete level and breaking from structure, and then you've created this Russian, steroid monster, that I think comes from knowledge versus the drugs themselves. Ilya Sorokin, you've got all these different guys that are really playing at the top level of their game, and it's that competitive nature. And I bring it back to, even the MMA. When you look at, the former champion there, what's his name?
McGregor?
What's that?
McGregor? Khabib?
No, Khabib. Okay, so you look at Khabib, you even look at some of his coaching things. He goes, listen, I don't care if you hate me, doesn't matter. But you'll never quit. And if you do quit, I won't coach you. So it won't make any difference. But he says, you can go there, a guy can break your arm, you can do whatever, you can lose, but you never quit. And that's basically the Russian way. I hate to, give them lots of praise in the fact that all these things are going around worldwide. But when you break it down to hockey, never mind the political forefront or background, you start looking at what makes them incredible hockey players. Hey man, all you have to do, go back to the 1987 series, Canada Cup series, and tell me. Every game ended 8-7. And it was incredible, some of the best hockey anybody's ever seen.
I think one of the reasons why I like to work with you is I think you're the most detailed goalie coach that I've ever met. And I know you're very humble about it, but it's true.
Thank you.
It is very true.
Yeah, Ian Clark, I'd argue Ian Clark, there's not a font small enough that Ian Clark can get his message across. I mean, it is what it is.
Well, even if you were the Walmart version of Ian Clark, let's just say.
That's a good way to put it.
Hypothetically speaking,
yeah.
I think that anytime I post a video with you on the ice, we do a podcast, people respect what you have to say. Now, I'm curious, as somebody who, I personally think I respect you more than anybody else because I come to you for knowledge and advice.
Oh, thanks.
When you see Andrei Vasilevskiy, what do you see as a goalie coach?
I see an athlete that's got the full package. He's mentally tough. He's incredibly fit. He moves like he's 5'7", but he's really 6'5", probably 6'7" on skates. I see a goaltender that's highly intelligent and incredibly on the edge of, I think he's maximized his adrenaline. If you ever get a close-up look at Vasilevskiy's eyes, I don't think they could be wider than they are. In fact, they're probably too wide. Not being critically as a goaltending coach, but just like, how do you get your eyes that wide? And he just has the ability to take all of the information in and make the right decisions more often than most goalies.
Is there a technical aspect you see, like him executing on the ice? You're like, damn, that's difficult for me to get my students to do. I can't get over how efficient and how excellent he is at this.
His ability to go down and then transition and change direction, and then of course spread himself out. You think you've spread himself out, and then he adds another foot and a half to his ability to perform, and it's incredible. But not only that, when he's absolutely one and done, spread out, looks like he can't recover, boom, he's then back into the RVH, scanning, looking, and knowing when to get up. So his timing mechanisms in the game are so sharp. They're so sharp and so precise that he's up before other guys are. He doesn't sit there like everybody else does. As soon as his team has possession, boom, he pops out of the RVH, he's ready to go. I just did a video on Jack Campbell the other day. It's the same idea. There's too much delay when you want to recover at times. Vasilevskiy's like, he's on. And when he's on, he's very scary.
The presenting sponsor for today's show, the Daily Wire Plus. They have this incredible collection, the Jordan Peterson Mastering Life collection. They sponsored last week's show. They're back again. Seriously great watch. And if you just go to the Daily Wire Plus, you get their entire catalog of podcasts, whether it's my favorite right now is Matt Walsh's Am I a Racist? I love that one.
Haven't seen it yet. It's on my watch list.
It's the top of the list. Also, his What is a Woman is fantastic.
I've seen that one.
They got the Ben Shapiro show. They have so many shows on Daily Wire Plus. I highly recommend it. And we talked last week in depth about getting the most as a man, managing your marriage, managing relationships, negotiating the art of the deal. All that is in JP, Jordan Peterson's Mastering Life collection. Dave and I couldn't recommend it enough. We're so excited and so proud to have the Daily Wire Plus on the podcast. And right now, if you go to the link in the video description on the YouTube show, click on that link, use the code BIZKIT30, BIZKIT30. You're going to get 30% off your subscription from the Daily Wire Plus. And again, thank you so much to them for joining the show, and we are so proud to have them on. NHL goaltenders. Yeah. You work with some. You're very familiar with all the goaltenders in the National Hockey League. Who catches your eye right now as a guy who is just over and above achieving and excellent?
The Boston Bruins goaltenders, Swayman and Ilmark, they're having an amazing season. And they play differently than everybody else right now. they don't stay down in the RVH for when the puck's on the half wall. They get up, they're moving in position, they're tracking, and the best part about that is, the people that never get the shout outs would be the assistant coaches that are out there and the goaltending coaches and skill coaches, because they're the ones at the bottom of that rung. The bottom of the totem pole you see is their hair. So everything else is under dirt. Those particular guys working together to communicate would make a massive difference. Just seeing the game against San Jose and Vancouver last night, or seeing how Edmonton plays with their defensive system. If they were to marry a system very similar to what the Boston Bruins do, or at least work towards your team identity, genetics, as well as a goaltender, you can have a lot of success. Those guys are playing great hockey.
And Winnipeg Jets legend Bob Essensa, goalie coach in Boston, correct?
Yeah, very, very smart. I remember talking to Dave Alexander from St. Louis, and they had a real battle going through the finals, and it's a tough go when you're working through guys that really have an understanding of what goaltenders do, what their tendencies are, and how you can disrupt those tendencies. When you have the best of the best thinking outside of the box, it makes a big difference.
And as far as goaltenders outside of them, I know we talked, previously before we started recording earlier this morning. Stuart Skinner, a guy that grabs your attention as well. Yeah, Stuart Skinner in Edmonton. He's probably the epitome of a big kid from Canada. The bottom line with him is that he's a balance between skill, athleticism, and on top of that, he has the ability to break from that structure, like we talked about, like some of the Russian goaltenders. But it's all filled with a lot of adrenaline too. What a great opportunity to play with some of the greatest players in the world. And on top of that, you've got a goaltender that's a $5 million goaltender with all that success in Toronto, comes in, and Stuart stands in and takes that number one spot. It's a story in the making there for sure. I know you've gotten to know Jack, a little bit. Do you think there's a reason why? Well, myself with Jack Campbell, I don't know Jack Campbell that well. I know him through our network. And in his particular situation with Jack Campbell, there may be something going on or off the ice. We don't know that. And that's why it's so easy being an armchair athlete. But when we start coming down to that, to Jack Campbell, the way he's going to play well is if he feels well. And if he feels really strong mentally and he feels really, really good and he starts seeing positive things, he's going to make a big difference. I got a really interesting thing really quickly. I had a friend of mine, he got cancer. Very deadly. There was only 4 people on the planet that had it, and he was doing all kinds of research. Okay, and I'm just gonna take one little piece of research out. But there was a group split into 2 that were designed to have a bucket of water. Okay, each of them, and one was yelling at the bucket of water, telling him it's a loser, it's terrible water, it tastes bad, it's really, really awful. And then the other bucket, they were just telling it good things. Oh, you taste so good. This is fantastic. It's amazing. Both buckets were frozen. The one that was negatively screamed at was all shards when it was frozen. All shards, really jagged edges and things like that. And on the other side, the water had individual snowflakes that you can see, in there. And they went, it's probably a fluke. They did it over and over and over again. And ultimately, it was the same result in the end. So if we're 70% water, maybe if we stop the negative self-talk and start blocking that out and start talking positively to ourselves, maybe we have the ability to make some chemical changes inside of our own body. No, it sounds weird, but hey, they're already starting to break apart cancer cells with certain frequencies, which is pretty amazing. I saw it on a TED Talk recently. So getting back to that, not off a tangent there, but Jack Campbell, hey, if you feel good, you look good. He's got the talent and the skill to bring it forward. There's just a few things that are left in his game from Toronto that he's brought over to a team that's trying to outscore their problems. And it's really, really hard to do that. So I think the smaller little adjustments in his game teamed up with working with the defensive core to minimize those spots. Hey, all the evidence is there. You know exactly where they're scoring. You know what types of shots are beating them. You can address that really easy. I'd say 2-3 sessions, you should have that over with. I think one thing I noticed with Stuart Skinner, kind of go back to him for a second, big guy, 6'4", I believe so, yeah. Big guy. Yeah. Spends probably 60% of his game sitting in the RVH. Pucks at the half wall, he's still sitting there. He just chills there all day. And Thatcher Demko, maybe the Ian Clark effect, another guy where the RVH is almost like a style of their game. It is. They're leveraging that quite a bit nowadays. And that triangular pose of the RVH. I mean, it's what is it? It's a butterfly, and you lean over, and then one leg has to extend so you don't fall over. But it puts some immense pressure on the hips, and I think it's more of a VH style.
meaning that it's more of a reactionary block save than it would be sitting in your block. It's kind of a combination of both, but you don't want to be sitting in it for that length of time. The second thing is, I was even watching it last night when I was analyzing video, that it puts immense pressure on the hips because they get tired in that position. They start sinking their ass down. When you sink your ass down, your toe comes up. When your toe comes up, you're pushing off the back part of your skate, not the front. So it's important to stay upright. It's important to be over top of your movement and have the ability to push off. But I think that moving into a pendulum swing of having an RVH style is not going to prove fruitful in the long term, especially when you're making the first move.
Well, and this was a thought, and this is the reason why I bring this up. Across the National Hockey League, I've talked about the stats before, but only 4 goaltenders in the National Hockey League that are in the top 30 in save percentage are 6'1" or shorter. Everybody else is 6'2" plus. So we're talking big guys. The top 40 in wins, only 3, might be 4 now because this has changed a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but only 4, again, are 6'1" or shorter. So it's a big guys dominated game. When you have these men with huge, long shins, these big, elongated frames, as we talked about, where the game is 60% in the RVH for a guy at 6'6" in Demko or 6'4" in Skinner, these massive human beings, are seeing them break down faster. You're seeing guys go down with injuries. And to come back to a topic that I've been talking about for the last 3 months, because I got it done, is this hip surgery epidemic in goaltending with this strain.
It's unbelievable. I'm surprised that there's not going to be lawsuits in certain situations. Let's put it this way: you got Demko that's off. You've got, or it was off.
Well, he was just off for a groin injury. Correct?
Groin injury. But I'm just saying that all of those things do play a role especially when you're recovering from that. Have you ever tried to recover from an RVH across the Royal Road up to get up onto your feet? There's a lot of pressure on the groin, a lot of pressure on the lower back, a lot of pressure on the hips. So for me, I've inherited 4 goaltenders just now, and one of them's 15 that all need surgery, hip surgery. 3 of them have gotten it, and now we're going to go into rehab. You're one of them. If you don't take care of your hips, you might not play. You might be a commentator. You know what I mean? You might have to go to school and try to learn to become a GM because you're just destroying your hips. And when you start adjusting the equipment, this is the biggest thing, okay? Gary Bettman and everybody else has done a great job at trying to increase the scoring. I mean, the scoring is ridiculous. Vancouver, 20 shots apiece last night against San Jose, 6-2, 8 goals scored on 40 shots. It's scoring a lot. But the problem is that the goaltenders are getting bigger. The knee stacks are getting smaller, so they're putting a lot more pressure on their hips. They're putting a lot more pressure on their ankles, their knees. And then when you start having your skates a little higher than your knees, you're going to put immense pressure on your hip flexors. So it's to the detriment of the health of the goaltender to start really moving some of that equipment away. On the player side, they're improving it. They're making the sticks better, the shots more accurate, lighter equipment. For the goaltenders, they're shrinking everything down. And when you have those long limbs, you need some shim or something to shore up what they're putting down onto the ice first. And equipment manufacturers have a lot of thinking to do with their engineers in order to make those adjustments.
I've thought about that long and hard myself personally, and as great as it would be to fix certain pieces of the equipment to help our goaltenders, you're going to maybe decrease scoring because the knee stack gets a little bit bigger, maybe the chest gets a little bit wider, maybe the pants get a little bit wider as well. The scoring is going to go down. The NHL doesn't seem, or at least that much interested in the goaltender's health. At least I think. Do you think that maybe adding almost like a baseball rotation, if you have 8 goaltenders and everybody starts a different game, would be the solution to that? As guys get bigger, they break down and everybody's getting injured.
Well, yeah, you overplay people. Like if you overplay your goaltenders, I thought they overplayed Vasilevskiy last year, like way overplayed. It was not managed, especially when you have Brian Elliott there as a more than capable goaltender to go in and even be a 1A, 1B goaltender. But whenever you overplay, and if you don't count the number of butterflies or manage the number of RVHs that goaltenders are going into, you're going to chip away. I mean, everyone's different, but the damage is all the same. It requires those 3 little holes in your hip, and they got to go through everything and shave everything down. It's a real big problem, and then you got to hope that you've done the right things to get back at it again. So I think the equipment, fooling around with it, I don't think you need to make the equipment bigger to protect it, but you do need to augment areas such as your joints, your ankles, your knees, your hips. You need to make sure that whatever a goaltender enters into, that it's complementing the comfort of the joint, or forget it.
The reason I said equipment becoming bigger was and this is just my thought process. Big guys, 6'4", 6'5", like myself, we have a huge shin. And when you shrink the size of the pants, you have to crank so far over to get that tight seal on a reverse, as opposed to you added, I don't know, maybe like a half inch of coverage in the pant. Significantly less strain, especially when we're in that end range. Yeah. And that was why I was thinking you shrink down or add more to the pants. That could be a solution.
Yeah, they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. Of course, the National Hockey League is going to have more fans when they have more scoring. I mean, you watch soccer, arguably that would be the negative to it, but soccer, you can watch it for 90 minutes and nobody scores. But you shrink the field down and you start adding body checking to it, things change pretty quick. So with these, with these types of things, I think that, adding an inch to the pants won't make it won't make a difference so much to the scoring. Maybe they won't see it, but if they do shoot at it because it's not as firm, it's still gonna go in. It's how you place your glove and your blocker and when to place the glove and blocker and your stick into certain positions that'll help you cover those holes. If you're trying to cover those holes with your hips, or you're trying to cover your holes by leaning, that's where you're starting to tear your body apart. So that's where some of it lands on the goaltender, and some of it lands on the equipment manufacturers and things like that.
I was thinking more so, guys looking high, you have to get up off your ass like we talked about, lean the head over, you're cranking even more forward as opposed to...
Well, yeah, you have to contort, right? If you have the holes, you're going to have to have the opportunity to kind of twist yourself into a position. I showed you that video with the NHL goaltenders all trying to get into the RVH, like, and having cameras all around so they can see what they look like. Well, they're doing things, for example, coming across on the blocker side and putting their paddle down, and they're leaving a triangular space the size of your upper body over top. So you don't think that someone like a Patrick Kane or Draisaitl or McDavid, Crosby, you can keep naming players, can't score upstairs? Of course they can. So you have to make sure that you have the ability to get in with the least amount of movement, the more effective way to do it, and using your arms and your hands to create those triangular areas or spaces above the pads and in between the body that'll help you block it.
I want your 2 cents on the RVH soft seal, and for those that are listening maybe aren't familiar, the soft seal being, I guess you would have formerly called it post to post, where you go down, both skates touch post to post, and you kind of stay neutral and flat. Now called a RVH soft seal, I guess is the new term that the new kids in the block are calling it. Mm-hmm. But what are your thoughts on it?
Soft seal, or I've heard it called reverse tracking. That particular thing is not going to solve too much, because you have a goaltender or player that's behind the net. You've stopped them maybe from wrapping, but if they take a wide wrap, you're dead. I mean, I know that you can push off and go into your RVH, but you're moving away from the far side. So it really depends. You got to identify if they're a left-handed or a right-handed player and things like that. I think it's a mistake. The reason why, guys are starting to get smart, they'll just pass out. They'll pass out to the bumper player or to the breaking, the leaking defenseman, and it'll be a one-timer. In fact, it happened to Carey Price last year before when he was playing. He would go down the moment the puck would touch the bottom of the circle. The moment it would touch the bottom of the circle, boom, he was in an RVH. Well, they knew that during the pre-scout. So as soon as that player got to that spot, he passed the puck to a player, a defenseman that was already coming down across the railroad, a defenseman, and he just passed the puck blindly through that area, boom, into the net. And you saw Carey Price just, get upset for a moment, and then he never did that tactic again. So tendencies are only 50% of what goaltending coaches in the National Hockey League are missing by just providing goaltending training. What they need to do is also teach the team how to score. And the teams and the goaltending coaches that are doing that are the ones that are more valuable to the general managers and the head coaches. Because let's face it, goaltending is the most important position in the game, and especially if you don't have any. Okay, and if you're looking for an insurance policy on your coaching career, as far as a head coach, assistant coach, GM, it's having a really solid goaltending tandem. If you have that, you're going to win 60% of the time.
Just to backtrack for a second, do you think that Carey Price would be another victim of a career being cut short from the way that the game is being played with all the strain on the knees and hips and whatnot?
Carey Price is I find Carey Price to be very economical. I don't find him being violently stopping, overusing an RVH or things like that. No, I don't. I think the off-ice stuff plays a role, but the on-ice stuff, he's just so efficient. He's so ice in your veins. He's so cerebral. He's an incredibly smart goaltender. I'm not going to say he's the best of all time, but he is one of the guys that's up there.
Quite possibly the best of our generation.
Yeah, definitely.
Now to be preceded by Andrei Vasilevskiy.
Absolutely.
Anybody else I'm missing in that list?
Well, you could just imagine what the young guys look like coming up. let's see what they do with Askarov. Let's see what Sorokin does. Let's see what these guys do.
Did you see the save Askarov made on the breakaway where he went so far out of the net, fell ass backwards, the puck's trickling on the line, and somehow he breaks out the wood chopper and throws the stick down and stops it on the line when he's about 6 feet out of the net. Did you see that save?
I didn't see it, but it doesn't surprise me.
I'll throw the video on the video version of the podcast,
but
incredible.
I mean, it's that never say die attitude that they have. They've got nothing to lose. You got to remember, I talked about this with a guy actually just coming down here. The bottom line is that we here in North America don't know what it's truly like to suffer as a hockey player, to suffer as a person, right? Really. You start going into other countries where, maybe you're kept back in certain ways, or you don't have the opportunity to do certain things. There's pain involved in that. And pain creates pressure, which creates diamonds. So these guys want it. They've been there. They don't want to go back there, so they push to be the very best. They found something they're good at, and they're the best at it. North America, if they don't feel like it, or it's raining today, which is 70% of the time, what's going to happen? You're not going to be a part of those guys, and that's why you're seeing a resurgence. You saw it. The USA Hockey call for 51% of the NHL will be goaltenders from the United States in 30 years, right? Or by 2030. So that's a great goal to have, and for a while there, they were doing pretty good thanks to a few of the goaltenders that were playing well, but now they're non-existent. Canadians, same thing. We see a little surgence of a few guys that have come in, but they haven't been able to stick it out. Why are the Russians? Why are the Czechs? Why are the Finns? Why are the Swedes coming in and not only playing, but they're sticking and they're taking over? Well, those pieces are because they come from areas where they are very disciplined over motivation. Discipline is more important than motivation.
Do you think that, and I talked about it recently, we're not going to talk politics on the show. This is not
I don't want to talk politics.
This is not a political podcast, but this is a thought that I did have in all seriousness related to hockey, that over the past 3 years of goaltenders in, let's say, Canada not being allowed to play for 2020 and a good chunk of 2021 is going to reflect in the development and the lack of Canadian goaltenders further that you're going to see in the National Hockey League and in pro levels, as opposed to where in Sweden, where they were all open. The U.S., they got open very, very quickly. You're going to see those guys where they got the extra year of development.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, where you had the opportunity, I had guys calling me from Quebec, hey, do you have ice? Yeah, come on down and stay here. Go ahead and run your sessions, invite your pros here if you want. But, the bottom line is, yeah, it's going to create a huge vacuum. And that huge vacuum is that players weren't allowed to play. They had to rent the ice. So in some cases, rented the ice by themselves just to skate. Okay, these are pros. So you got guys that were 15 years old, 16 years old, that were robbed of their opportunity to play hockey, and now they were 17, and really those 2 years or 700 developmental days were cut short. Usually you can expand your career. You turn 20, you go to the NCAA, you're there for 4 years. You go to the uSport, you're there for 5 years. You go to Europe, you're there for 5 years. But when you're 17, you don't get to go back and get your 16th year, your 15th year, and your 14th year. So that's why you got to be patient. You got to maximize that time, because nothing's more important than playing games and learning about your craft from the mistakes you make.
I think if there's somebody that I do feel bad for, it's the guys that were 20 bombs for the 2020-2021 season and completely just robbed of that year. And no NCAA looks, no uSport looks. What are you going to do? I didn't play the last year.
Yeah.
Oh, too bad.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got a generation of guys that are at the end of their 10 years of development, and then boom, COVID hits, and you got a year, 2 years, 3 years that they don't play. It's tough. I mean, at UBC, we've got that same situation with goaltenders too. You have a goaltender that comes in the next year, but the year before they couldn't play because, of COVID. Now you're looking at, they missed a year, then they missed 2 more years because other veterans are playing above them. So it's a tough go. It's tough to develop, and it's not their fault. It's just the fault of the fact that we lived through a pandemic, something that was hopefully once in a lifetime or once in a generation. And
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, because a lot of people suffered through it. But in reality, yes, it does definitely hurt them. It hurts the coaches, hurts the players, it hurts a lot of the teams.
I think if there is one thing though that was good that came out of the the P word, can't say it on YouTube these days, but it's that I got to meet you. We developed our relationship, and that's why we're here. It's why you're my guy now. I wouldn't have otherwise been able to meet you and build our relationship otherwise.
But I appreciate that, and I love the fact that you You come out, you're willing to knock down doors, do the things that you need to do to be able to get around the people that you want to be with. And I respect that you've been around other guys. They offer some pretty phenomenal things and phenomenal opportunities, and they're good people, and they have their right approach coming forward. They just want to help people, and they get a charge out of making your goal their goals. But that's what I get out of you, is the fact that, I thought it was going to be jokey for a little while, and then we got onto the ice, and I said, when we're on the ice, it's all business. When we're off the ice, we can fool around, tell jokes, do different things. But, I take it seriously because I want you to do it. And, you've managed to do it in Europe, you've managed to do it in North America, and who knows where you're going to do it this September. So,
kind of, sort of, in North America.
Well, we'll see what happens. But, there's opportunities, right? Like you saw recently, the MMA, Dana White say, hey, if you're even remotely a savage, he goes, nowadays you can just dominate. And that's where it comes down to is being a person that's disciplined versus the sugar high of motivation. Forget motivation. You're just really excited to go nowhere, but discipline is a driven focus on a previously redefined plan. And that redefined plan is reverse engineering where you want to go and stick to that plan all the way through.
Not to deviate too much, but in the past 3 months I haven't skated at all. Soon to be 4.5, almost 5 by the time we finally start skating in a couple weeks. I think one of the things that I've tried to stick to help me stay disciplined for when we get back on the ice, we start accomplishing things. Because I've been sitting on my ass doing the dinkiest of exercises. It's easy to get complacent. In all seriousness, me and my physio guy, we're celebrating doing a body weight squat. We're celebrating doing a deadlift with 10-pound dumbbells. It's so weird. But waking up in the morning, cold shower, ice cold, whether you like it or not, and then starting the day from there. I think that's kind of helped me personally. And in regards to just me personally in my development, don't speak to it because I know you're going to pump my tires, but I love hockey and I don't take no for an answer. And if you tell me no, okay, well, somebody else will tell me yes. I just have to find them. So we'll keep going until I find it.
There's great stories about that. We briefly talked about Giuseppe over in the United States in football, same idea. If you have the want, need, desire, the focus, the motivation to create discipline like you have, discipline is over emotion every time. Oh, I don't feel like doing it. Forget what you feel like. What's the right thing to do? And can you put your head on the end of the day on your pillow and say, you've moved yourself one step closer to your goal? If the answer is yes, sleep well. If the answer is no, who are you fooling? The first person you're going to lie to is yourself. And you run into lots of guys. Usually it's the parents that say, oh, my son's this, my son's that, my son's this. And then I send them a video of a guy that's U9, a soccer player that converted his backyard into a training place for him to learn soccer moves. It'll blow your mind what some of these kids do in Europe. Europe's got a good plan in place for athleticism for young athletes, and they build great athletes because of it. So, we have too much vitamin E here in Vancouver or across, North America, and that vitamin E is a bad vitamin and should be removed from everybody's diet, and that's entitlement. Yeah. Entitlement is nobody owes you anything, and it's going to be a tough road anywhere you go, but you of all people should know that. Knocking the doors down, being restricted by your hip mobility, chasing your dream, living on whatever you need to do to get to where you need to go. That's a story that movies are made of, right? Not, oh, this guy's, kind of well off and he stays at home and he's got all the video games in the world and he goes to a very fancy school, he's got nice clothes and a nice car. He doesn't have that fear. Everybody that you look at, whether it's M&M or whether it's Navy SEALs that go through basic training where they treat you like an animal for about 6 weeks, those types of guys and gals that live in that type of world, look at the MMA, all the people that are coming from, really tough places are winning world titles because they know what it's like to be at the bottom of the barrel. And I think that's what it takes. You really need to go back to roots. It's like going back to Rocky IV, go back to training in the barn and lifting up cows and whatever he was doing. But you need to get back to your roots and know what it's like not to have anything special.
Yeah. Anytime you see Rocky IV, it makes you want to go run down the street and just go knock out a truck.
Yeah, and realize you're fighting Vasilevskiy in the ring. It's like,
It's a bad idea.
It's a bad idea.
It's going to get you choked out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Carl Weathers found out the hard way, I guess.
I did want to say, just for the record, for one thing, I've been criticized maybe over the past couple months, just with my hip surgery, and this is more of a personal note, of people, saying that like I'm a quitter, that I make excuses. Well, like the past year, and it personally, we kept it hidden from the public so that people wouldn't know, but like I'm taking steroids left and right because it's the only way I was able to skate. And then it got to the point where I just have no gas in the tank. I'm like, I can't do this. I've given you everything. I have nothing. I need this surgery.
Well, not only that, it's the fact that your body, other areas of your body are overcompensating to protect you in that area, so you're really wrecking your body. And as you get older, you don't know anything now, but when you get older, your body will remind you of every stupid decision you ever made. And, you can criticize all you want, but if you can't move, if you have to sit in water, cold or ice water, just to even remotely move through the night, or move through the day, I mean, you have to make changes. And in my opinion, you made a very gutsy decision. It takes a lot of guts. And then on top of it, you didn't quit hockey. You said, okay, I'm going back.
First thing I said was, I'm not retiring.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't afford to.
Yeah, just wait until you get there. Yeah, exactly.
Financially.
But just wait till you get there, right? Just wait till you get there. And I think people should draw the fact that you're a normal guy, a regular everyday guy, that's very motivational, because you have every reason not to do the things that you do, and you're doing it.
If we're being honest, like I don't have an overwhelming attribute that wows you. I was blessed by God to be 6'5", and I thank the Lord every day for that, because it's probably the only reason my career is still somewhat alive. Like if I was 5'11", I would have been toast like a long time ago. But it's really the only attribute that I have. I don't take no for an answer, and I keep trying to find new ways to improve.
Yeah. And through that, you're taking an opportunity where you're going to be knocking on a bunch of doors that people won't knock on. You look at guys like Scott Darling when he went through it. He was down playing in the Southern Professional League, and every time someone had a bad game, he'd make a phone call. Hey, I just want to let you know, I just want to check, see if you're looking for goaltenders. And he took care of his own business, but he had a dream.
Really?
Yeah.
He would call the coaches.
He'd call the coaches or email them or connect them and say, if you're looking for a goaltender, I'm ready to go. And you know what? It sounds like a long shot. The guy's got Stanley Cup rings. He busts his ass, and I had the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with him. Even piggybacked him down in Madison, Wisconsin, with his feet dragging on the ground because he's such a huge human being. But a really down-to-earth, great guy. And what's really interesting about Scott is that he wants to tell his story through a movie. So it would be really interesting. I mean, it's a dark story that probably Disney at that time wouldn't have taken, but they would be smart to take it on, because it is a really amazing story, of how a guy perseveres, literally took over for Crawford because he was injured, and they won the Stanley Cup. Like, it's pretty awesome.
And what do you get to see from that story? Like personally, that most people haven't.
Well, you can make decisions in your life that affect you in a negative way, and they are, and sometimes they get out of control. That you're willing to submit your ego and work hard once you find out you have an ego. And then you're willing to do whatever it takes to achieve a dream or a goal that you want, because you realize you only live once and you are worth it.
Are we talking about on or off ice?
Well, you're talking about everything. Yeah. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
But he's an amazing guy, and I hope that he gets that opportunity. So if you're a producer out there, or if you're someone that's out there looking for a great story, call Scott Darling. Or reach out to Trav to reach out to me, and we can see if we can connect with him, because he's a pretty amazing person.
Goalie coaches in the goalie community.
Oh, yeah.
So,
boy, we got a lot of hate from a lot of people that time. And they really misunderstood the side of the argument that they need to get onto.
You want to go off on that, or would you like me to tee up?
Well, you could do whatever you want. Ask me questions, but I've got a few things to say about that as well.
Okay. I think, just me personally, I think the goalie coaching community as a whole are missing the overall overwhelming picture, and you and I've talked about is there's a scoreboard for what are we doing for our goaltenders, are we helping them to develop? Right. Part of it, in my opinion, is watching the reps, watching the amount of volume we're putting on our goaltenders, quality over quantity, not driving guys into hip surgery at 15 years old. I couldn't imagine being the parent of a goaltender at 15 years old, knowing that my son's goalie coach has contributed to having my son get surgery at 15. Yeah. Crazy.
It is crazy. 15 years old. You're barely out of adolescence. Just new into teenager.
You can't even have a beer to numb that.
And you're walking around with a limp. There's a serious issue with that.
You need a good pair of underwear to keep cool, compartmentalized.
What a transition.
Comfortable. Especially if you're the goalie for the Ottawa Senators. You're going to be like, holy shit, we got no back checking tonight. I'm going to put my dick in my balls, my cannolis, my bocconcinis, and a nice pair of sheath underwear. Here's why. They have an incredible dual pouch technology. It's a separated compartment to put all your manly parts where they need to go, so they're not touching.
sticking to the side of your leg. You don't have to like peel it off the side of your leg. It's compartmentalized. It's cool. It's comfortable with the bamboo mesh. And right now, Sheath Underwear, you go to the link in the video description. Use the code BISKIT69. We changed it back to the old code, by the way. It's BIZKIT 69. BISKIT69 will get you 20% off the greatest pair of underwear money has ever bought. And if you're tired of your father being disappointed in you like mine is, get a pair of Sheath Underwear and he will be proud of you once again.
And ladies, there's stuff for you there too, so don't think that you're being shut out on this one.
Yeah, they got on the wrong side of that argument because the number one thing is, first of all, we're talking about a scoreboard and goaltending, number one. And that scoreboard and goaltending for goalie coaches is how many people are we developing. And if you're charging $400 or $500 and you're not in the market where it costs a lot of money for your ice, charging $400 or $500 is going to limit the average goaltender from getting the development that they need. Not that you don't deserve the money, and we'll talk about that in a second. It comes down to how many times can a goaltender participate in this, and how many parents have goaltending coaches known that they've paid $50,000, $60,000 to join an academy that they don't have, that they probably are not quite ready for, and they could have gotten the training with you by sticking to a certain plan and getting lots of games in a minor hockey system, and wait to go to an academy and be really effective.
The goalie coaching scoreboard, depending on how you see it though, could be, are we helping goaltenders develop? That's one way to look at it. Or how much revenue can we generate? We're a business. Goalie coaching
That's
is a business.
scoreboard as well, right? If we're talking about scoreboards for goaltending programs, the obvious thing would be, hey, how much money are we making? Are we able to be a viable business? Are we able to survive in a highly competitive market? And of course, things cost a lot of money. And I can assure you that the goaltending prices haven't gone up in comparison. And I can assure you that the goaltending salaries in the National Hockey League, which are grossly underpaying, okay, but there's guys that are willing to go in there for a tracksuit and work for free in a variety of different junior teams, hockey teams, things like that. So goaltending coaches in general, they devalue themselves. Now moving into a different market, you have guys like Steve McKitchen, for example, who not only played in the National Hockey League, not sure how long, but I know he's played there, right?
One game.
One game, doesn't matter.
More than you and me combined.
But he played there, so lightning struck, didn't it? Okay, and it struck twice because he managed to get into the National Hockey League as a coach as well, in one of the original 6 teams. So when guys like McKitchen, or if you have other guys out there of equal caliber that are charging a certain amount of money to a smaller group of players, we're not talking about the same scoreboard anymore, are we? We're talking about taking an exclusive group of guys, and we're taking an exclusive amount of education, experience that you should be charging for. Here's an example. If you have a really shitty lawyer, he's only going to be $100 an hour, $50, $75 an hour. But if you're a great lawyer, you're getting $2,000, $3,000 an hour. So you start looking at the difference. If you're looking to take 10 guys with you and you're willing to give all your time to 10 guys, and that is your business, and your sole purpose to live is to make sure that those guys have success and you're monitoring them, and they're leveraging the knowledge you created by your 2 lightning strikes, you should charge what you're worth. Don't devalue what you're worth. I'm talking about guys that get into a position where they knew somebody, they got onto a team in per se, they're overcharging, so this poor guy can only see him once a month, and they're not developing. The scoreboard has got zeros all over it. So it's just really important that we have a balance. I mean, I like to leverage my knowledge. It's been 3 decades, so it's important for me. Sorry, I probably hit my mic, but
that's okay.
I like to leverage my knowledge. I've been doing it for 3 decades. I've written 2 books. My 3rd one's on the way. I've got a goaltending app coming out. All these things are designed around helping the other athletes and any goaltending coaches that are coming up to get to that knowledge without taking 3 decades. Get to that knowledge by taking a year or 2 years, so that you can then build off it and leave it better than we did. There's an old saying there that I saw on a Ricky Gervais show, believe it or not, and he just says, the power is when men come over and they plant trees that grow, that they know that they'll never enjoy the shade of, because they're doing it for other people. They're building something, and they know that somewhere down the line, someone's going to appreciate what they did because they're sitting under the shade of the guys that had the vision to be able to plant those trees.
I think on that note too, I know Steve is going to watch this, and Steve is somebody who I look up to in many different ways from you, but Steve is somebody who has changed my life, probably even more off the ice than he has on the ice. And again, we're not saying like you're entitled to charge, $300, $400, $500 an hour, whatever you want to charge, or just like Eli Wilson, where you're charging $550 an hour, you get a jersey, and hey, you get to train with Eli Wilson, great. But at the same time, like to Steve's credit, he trains guys for free that don't have money. I don't know if Steve wants me saying that, but because he does care to that extent. But it's an entangled relationship of the business side and the finances, because the man loves his cars, and helping guys develop. But to that point though, but Steve is somebody who has again changed my life, and I am forever grateful to him.
I reached out quite a while ago back to Steve McKitchen because I don't, in my opinion, you have to reach out to guys that have been around, that have been there, that have done their jobs, and he does that. He also has a very successful mentorship business for a reason. He's leveraging the pain, the blood, sweat, and tears, and the pain that goes into being a goaltender, trying to fight to get to the NHL. I don't care if you played 30 seconds or a 1 game or 100 games or 1,000 games. You had to fight like hell to get there, and very few, like 64 goaltenders in the world get a chance to do this every year. Think about that, 8 billion people. And then you have to leverage that time, but you're giving it exclusively to a group of mentorees. I'll bet you his scoreboard is pretty high. So I think, in whether it be Steve McKitchen or whoever else, taking what you have to take what I'm saying and really think about what I'm saying. If we're talking about development, we need to be able to see the goaltenders often. Maybe that's a camp, and maybe that's a weekly type of academy. You need to do something to make it affordable so that athletes can get out and do the things so they can one day work to an opportunity to be mentored by a pro goaltending coach or someone who's got that skill, knowledge, and ability, or at least someone who is affordable that can tap into the incredible minds of the goaltending coaches that actually live that life every single day. But to me, goaltending coaches are really underpaid. Guys like Mitch Korn and Bill Ranford and Ian Clark and, Francois Benoit Allaire, and it goes on and on. Like, these guys have pioneered, and most of those guys have never even played in the National Hockey League. They just study the game so much, so hard, that do you want to make a mistake? Do you want to waste 10 years to find out the wrong way? Or do you want to go to a person that has done their homework, that has a proven scoreboard of successful goaltenders? That's the difference.
Do you know what an NHL goalie coach makes? Rough idea?
A little over $100,000 a year, probably 115 to 120. Some make a little more. And
That's
then
it?
there's guys that are Stanley Cup champions that probably make over 200,000. A little over 200,000. And when you think about it, it's like, wow, that's a lot of money. No, it's not. You can go out and get a job that pays you $100,000 a year too, and it's a regular job. The key is the fact that all of the pressure in the world goes on that goaltending coach, because he is giving everything in his or her power to develop the goaltender. But he's not playing, but he's being, or she's being, evaluated based on the fact that how this goaltender plays. So in reality, like, the goaltender also, you have to earn enough respect for them to really accept a small adjustment or an improvement. It's tough. It's a real tough, conundrum to try to solve. And coaches are responsible for 14, 21 players, 28 players at times. Football coaches are responsible for 55 plus. But an NHL goaltending coach has to really manage not only the two that are there, have to really guide the guy that's in the development group, make sure that he's building assets that are going to complement and align themselves with the team in the event that they. How many times have you seen teams go through 4 or 5 goalies in a year? It's really tough because they're getting tired, they get sick, they don't play well, or frankly, they find the combination lock, right? They know the 2-3 tendencies you have and they expose them. They did it to Reimer last night.
It's crazy. You mentioned a guy getting paid only $200,000. I don't know if he wants to mention this, but I remember Steve McKeegan mentioned to me, he spends 4 or 5 years coaching Toronto. The Pittsburgh Penguins call him up in 2011, 2012, whatever it is. Hey, we'll offer you $250,000, $500,000 a year to come fix Fleury. This guy's a basket case, and he says, well, I'm making like double that coach, like doing my own business. So why would I want to coach in the National Hockey League when I can be more wealthy, I can support my wife, support my family, and do what makes me happy, and he still gets to have his 3 cars and beachfront property. So just crazy how underpaid goalies in the whole goalie coaching realm is.
Well, on top of that too, it's like, he's got a business that already pays him. So why would he go and leave that business to go make less, number one? Number two, what about the family factor? What about the the fact that you are going to live and time is going to pass and you are going to not have a strong relationship with your wife, or you're going to miss the key critical phases of the first 14 years of your kids' lives. And you're doing it because you're chasing a Stanley Cup and a dream, right? And it's really important. It's great work to do, but it does take a toll, a big toll, a lot on coaches and goaltending coaches as well. It's not the easiest gig in the world when you're home, 7 or 8 days a month, and the rest you're always working. And it's not like a 9 to 5 like most people think. You're going to the rink at 6:30 in the morning. You're trying to get ready for practice, which doesn't start till 10. And then they're off the ice in 35, 40 minutes. Then you sit in the coach's room and try to figure out what's going on and doing pre-scouts and everything else, getting ready for the meeting and make sure any last minute demands from the head coach are there. You got to have it all there. It's a lot of work.
I think that's one of the things that not to go off too much, but my woman personally is trying to communicate that to hers, and it's difficult to understand, is that this isn't a 9 to 5. It's not Walmart. It's not working in an accounting firm. It's like you mentioned. There's no hours. There's no prerequisites. Technically speaking, there's nothing required. It's what is going to get the job done. It could be nothing. It could be everything. You don't know.
It's not in comparison to what Elon Musk is doing with with rockets and with social media outlets. Elon Musk used to sleep in his office. Why rent an apartment? I mean, when he was creating and working on PayPal and different things like that, he was living at the office. And when you're an entrepreneur, or especially a solopreneur, you don't have much chance. You have to do what you have to do at every waking moment.
One of the things that Steve mentioned, you and I have talked about privately, and Steve and I have as well. Yeah. Steve says that you have to be a full-time income goalie coach to be a quality goalie coach. And I think one of the flaws with that is that being a full-time income goalie coach doesn't mean you're providing quality. Working for 40 years doesn't mean you're providing quality. I mean, I'm looking right over across the street here at the Scotiabank Tower. The CEO could be there for 10 years. Doesn't mean he's doing a good job. Right. It's the scoreboard of, are we helping our goaltenders develop? And to that point, I think one of the reasons why I respect you the most is that you're not even a full-time goalie coach. Most people don't even know that. You work at the airport as a firefighter full-time. That's where your big chunk of change comes from. Yeah. And then you goalie coach on the side. Yeah. So to you, what is a good goalie coach? What is a quality goalie coach in 2023?
I think it's a person that has the ability to take all of the knowledge that they have, not be scared to gather more knowledge and really believe that they're right, or they could be wrong, but see all sides of it, but having the real success in conveying that message and speaking to that athlete. There's that old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. If you have the ability to become that teacher and have students move into those abilities to make or to have an understanding that they can accept what you're doing, that to me is a great goaltending coach. And there's guys that do it part-time. Mitch Korn used to run a hockey rink. He used to manage a hockey rink, and he was working for the Buffalo Sabres. He was working with, some of the greatest goaltenders to ever play the game. So, no, I don't believe that at all. I think, that could be emotion talking, it could be something else talking, but no, not at all. You could be incredibly effective at what you're doing. For me, it's just the fact that you want to be able to make an impact in an athlete's game, and I just don't allow certain things to stand in the way of helping that athlete achieve excellence. I mean, look at the depression, suicide rates, and mental things that are going on today in the world. Do we not want to curb that a little bit and try to help these guys understand that hockey's not the only thing that you can do, but at the same time, give them the opportunity to realize that there is a dream there. Why not go chase it? And in the meantime, you'll learn a lot of invaluable lessons on how to work with people, how to take direction, how to give direction, and how to win the game of whether it be, sports, hockey. You might be, working as a CEO or a manager of a business.
And I don't know, you haven't had the chance to meet him, but again, Steve is one of, if not the greatest mentor, just off the ice wise, that I've ever met in my life. Yeah,
that's why I was a little bit hurt that he took it the wrong way, because I definitely had someone like that in mind when I was saying, there's guys out there that have done the time, done the energy, that have done the work, that has acquired the knowledge, and have elected to mentor people in a very specific situation and be able to share and marinate their athletes in all of the knowledge that they have. Hey, it's a successful business. That's what you should do. We're talking about, what we're offering to young athletes enough to be able to even get remotely close to even being accepted into a program like that. Because, you get guys that are 15, 16 that can't even skate. They have no strength in their legs. These are the basic pieces that should have been handled at 8 and 9 and 10 years old. So yeah, hopefully goaltending coaches that are out there that understand what I'm saying, remember it's a scoreboard on development. And if you're converting lots of players and the economy dictates how much you have to charge, or your knowledge dictates how much you're supposed to charge, and you're not willing to waste a lot of time being a babysitter, you want to be a driver and a worker and a guy that's going to bring someone through to the forefront of the National Hockey League, you got to charge for that, no question about it.
Do you hear that?
They're coming to get me? What?
It's the goalie coaching police.
Coming over to arrest us.
We're talking about the things that you're not supposed to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Ding, ding, ding.
You can't criticize anybody these days.
Yeah, God forbid, in today's world where everybody is all offended by everything, it's like we got to just take a step back and just relax for a while. Everyone's, the best part about where we live in this first world country is the fact that everyone's got different opinions, and we got to learn to live within those confines, and that's just the way life is.
Absolutely.
Right. Not everyone's going to live the way I live. So.
And for the record, we're on the 34th floor on West Cordova Street of the Vancouver.
Gorgeous place.
Fantastic place.
I've been in the restaurant here, but I totally forgot what it's like. And the rain is overtaking us, but there's still sunlight over by UBC, and now the mountains are clearing up. It's good.
Kind of like this conversation. It's kind of gone all ways. Couple things I wanted to talk about before we cap off.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Go grab coffee, because we don't have any coffee. There's no coffee.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's not hot. It's not strong. There's
no
coffee.
I need my nectar in the morning. I tell you that much.
Liquid of the gods. Liquid gold.
Nectar of the gods.
In the goalie coaching world, outside of the things we talked about with Steve and with basically everything else we talked about, what do you see wrong in the goalie coaching world right now that could be fixed to help athletes?
Too many pendulum swinging. Too much pendulum swinging. So the things like the panda, the things like doing a variety of different things that you're spending way too much time on, where you should only spend a certain amount of time in certain areas. You shouldn't be spending, if less than 2% of the time people are getting beat in the RVH, why are you spending 98% of your time in an RVH? Just really ridiculous things like that. Oh, everybody's coming around to say hello. That's
Places
good.
Opening up. Daily going to work.
Good.
I think one of the things we talked about in the SkyTrain today was you talked about goaltender gives up 8 goals in the breakaways on Saturday night's game, and they're spending 75% of their practice on Monday working on reverse integrations.
Why?
It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. I mean, even in that app that we were talking about, the one that's being developed, you're going to be able to drill down exactly what type of shot, what location, how you were beaten, identify that, and then have the ability to develop a plan to address that in your next session. So these types of things are really important, and it's going to be, the ability to open things up for people, provide a tool for any goaltending coach where they can create their own system and how they teach, because every system is unique to every goaltending coach and they work. The key is how can we be more of service to our athletes and be able to actually focus on the right things rather than just doing what we feel like doing on the ice that day.
Absolutely. Well, Pasco, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
This is going to be episode 37 of the podcast. As always, it's fun having you on.
Steve Penny. Who else is 37?
Connor Hellebuck.
Connor Hellebuck.
My favorite goalie.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. You should have him on the show.
I've tried. I'm looking forward to getting Matt Murray on the podcast again.
That'll be good. He's a phenomenal goaltender. I'd love to be able to talk about him in the next features.
He was actually just here. We were here having a good conversation maybe 2 weeks ago, right over there. So
talented goaltender.
Extremely, very underappreciated by the Toronto faithful and the Leafs fans.
Come on, guys. Come on. The guys could be the reason why you win the Stanley Cup.
Hey, if you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button. We do a new podcast every single Sunday during the season called Slangin The Bizkit. It is a non-mainstream hockey podcast, so we talk about my hockey career, the minor pros, all the stuff that you won't hear in the mainstream news.
Music,
Pop culture,
politics.
Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you soon.